You are turning the FBI into Trump's personal Gestapo, AOC's accusation echoed through the House Judiciary Committee, cameras rolling, Twitter celebrating, another conservative about to be destroyed on live television. FBI Director Kash Patel didn't flinch, didn't defend himself, just reached into his briefcase with the calm precision of a federal prosecutor. Congresswoman, I appreciate your concerns about FBI politicization. He pulled out a thick folder marked with official FBI classification stamps. Perhaps we should discuss your relationship with federal law enforcement. He held it up so every camera could see the label, Ocasio-Cortez Alexandria Financial Crimes Investigation, Ongoing, FBI Case File. AOC's confident smile vanished. She'd just accused the FBI director of being a fascist on live television, and he'd responded by showing America that the FBI had been investigating her for years. The House Judiciary Committee hearing room had seen plenty of political theater over the years, but nothing like what was about to unfold on this crisp Tuesday morning in Washington, D.C. FBI Director Kash Patel sat calmly at the witness table surrounded by classified folders and flanked by FBI legal counsel. The hearing was supposed to be a routine oversight session titled FBI Leadership Priorities and Reform Under New Direction. Committee Democrats had requested this hearing thinking they could put the new FBI director on the defensive about his controversial appointment. They had no idea they were walking into a trap. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, sitting prominently on the committee, had spent the morning coordinating with her communications team. Her Twitter account had been building anticipation, ready to hold the FBI accountable to the American people. No one is above oversight, justice for all. She'd prepared for weeks gathering opposition research on Patel's past statements. His book deals his media appearances. This was her moment to shine, to show her millions of followers that she could take down Trump's attack dog on live television. Committee Chairman Jim Jordan called the hearing to order, but before he could begin his opening statement, AOC raised her hand with theatrical urgency. Mr. Chairman, I have a point of personal privilege that cannot wait. Jordan, surprised by the interruption, yielded the floor. AOC stood, her voice carrying the practiced indignation that had made her a social media sensation. Mr. Chairman, before we begin this hearing, I must address the elephant in the room. We are not here for routine oversight. We are here because of a fundamental threat to American democracy sitting at that witness table. She pointed directly at Patel, her voice rising with each word. Director Patel, you represent everything that is wrong with our justice system. You are a partisan hack who spent years attacking our institutions, undermining our intelligence community, and serving as Donald Trump's personal attack dog. The committee room fell silent. Even seasoned political reporters were surprised by the directness and hostility of the attack, but AOC wasn't finished. You have no business leading the FBI. Your appointment represents the complete politicization of federal law enforcement. You are here to turn the FBI into Trump's personal Gestapo, targeting political enemies while protecting billionaire criminals and insurrectionists. She leaned forward, her voice dropping to a menacing whisper that still carried throughout the room. How can the American people trust someone who spent years undermining the very institutions he now claims to lead? You are a clear and present danger to democracy itself. The insult hung in the air like a death sentence. AOC had just accused the FBI director of being a fascist on live television in front of millions of Americans. Her social media team immediately began amplifying the moment, confident they'd landed a devastating blow. Kash Patel sat perfectly still for exactly 3 seconds, not moving, not blinking, just staring at AOC with the kind of ice-cold calm that comes from someone who'd prosecuted real criminals in federal court. That look, every attorney in the room immediately recognized it. It was the look of a prosecutor who'd just been fatally underestimated by someone who had no idea what they'd just unleashed. When Patel finally spoke, his voice was steady as steel, carrying the authority of the nation's top law enforcement officer. Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez. He said, his words precise and measured. I appreciate your concerns about FBI politicization. In fact, that's exactly why I brought these files with me today. He reached into his briefcase with deliberate precision, withdrawing a thick folder marked with official FBI classification stamps. Perhaps we should discuss your own relationship with federal law enforcement. He held up the folder so everyone could see the official markings: Ocasio-Cortez Alexandria, Financial Crimes Investigation, Ongoing, FBI Case File. The effect was immediate and devastating. AOC's practiced political smile faltered for just a fraction of a second, but it was long enough for millions of viewers to see that this wasn't going according to her script. As FBI Director, Patel continued with surgical precision, "I have access to ongoing federal investigations that reveal some very interesting patterns in your financial activities, Congresswoman." AOC tried to interrupt but Patel's voice cut through with the authority of someone who commanded 35,000 federal agents. "I think the American people deserve to know the truth about who's really compromised in this room." The power dynamic had shifted completely. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the woman who'd built her career on attacking authority figures, was suddenly facing the one authority figure in America who had an FBI case file with her name on it. And FBI Director Kash Patel was just getting started. The committee room had taken on the atmosphere of a federal courtroom where a defendant was about to be sentenced. AOC's confident demeanor had evaporated the moment she saw her name on an official FBI case file. But her political instincts kicked in and she launched into damage control mode. "This is outrageous," she declared, her voice cracking slightly with panic. "Director Patel, you are using the FBI to attack your political enemies. This is exactly what we feared, the complete weaponization of federal law enforcement." She turned to the committee Democrats, rallying them to her defense. "Mr. Chairman, this is a violation of everything our democracy stands for. The FBI director is using his position to intimidate a sitting congresswoman." Democratic committee members shifted uncomfortably in their seats. They'd expected routine political theater, not an active FBI investigation being revealed in real time. AOC's voice rose with practiced indignation. "This violates separation of powers. This is fascism in real time. America is watching as democracy dies in this hearing room." She pulled out her phone, live tweeting frantically, "FBI director using his position to attack me personally. This is what fascism looks like. #defend democracy, #stop the weaponization." But her counterattack was even more aggressive than her defense. She produced a folder of her own, slamming it on the table. "Director Patel, if we're going to discuss investigations, let's discuss your ethics violations. I have documentation of your book deals, your media appearances, your financial relationships with right-wing organizations." She read from prepared notes. "You've made over $500,000 from book deals while serving in government. You've appeared on dozens of conservative media shows. How do we know you aren't profiting from your position?" AOC stood up dramatically, pointing at Patel. "I call for your immediate resignation. You have proven our worst fears about the politicization of the FBI. I am filing formal complaints with the Department of Justice Inspector General." Her legal team, watching from the gallery, began making frantic phone calls. This was spiraling beyond normal congressional theater into something much more serious. "Furthermore," AOC continued, "I am introducing legislation to defund the FBI if this harassment continues. We will not allow federal law enforcement to be used as a weapon against political opponents." The threats were serious and well-coordinated. AOC was using every weapon in her political arsenal: media manipulation, legal challenges, legislative threats, and constitutional arguments. But she was facing the FBI director, not a political opponent. Kash Patel remained perfectly calm throughout her outburst, occasionally taking notes. When she finally finished, he looked up with the patience of a federal prosecutor who dealt with countless defendants. "Congresswoman," he said with measured authority, "this investigation began under the previous FBI administration long before my appointment. Your concerns about political weaponization are noted, but the law applies equally to everyone." He opened the FBI case file with surgical precision. Our forensic accountants in the financial crimes section have conducted a comprehensive analysis of your financial activities over the past 4 years. Patel's voice took on the tone of someone delivering a prosecution opening statement. What they discovered represents systematic violations of federal financial reporting requirements, campaign finance laws, and tax obligations. He began reading from the official FBI financial analysis. Between 2021 and 2024, your reported net worth increased from approximately zero to over 1.8 million. Our forensic reconstruction shows at least $400,000 in unreported income and $275,000 in suspicious transactions that triggered suspicious activity reports from multiple financial institutions. The specificity was devastating. These weren't political talking points. These were FBI forensic accounting conclusions with specific dollar amounts. AOC tried to interrupt. Those are legitimate investments, and the Bank Secrecy Act requires financial institutions to report suspicious activities to FinCEN. Patel continued, ignoring her protest. Your accounts generated 17 suspicious activity reports over 3 years. The pattern shows systematic structuring of transactions to avoid federal reporting requirements. He produced bank documents with official FBI evidence tags. Wells Fargo, Chase Bank, and Bank of America all filed SARs regarding unusual cash deposits, wire transfers from shell companies, and transactions that appeared designed to evade federal oversight. The evidence was overwhelming and highly technical. This wasn't political opposition research. This was the result of federal criminal investigation using the full resources of the FBI. Furthermore, Patel continued, IRS criminal investigation has been coordinating with our financial crimes section. This is a joint federal investigation involving multiple agencies. He held up another document that made AOC's face go completely white. Congresswoman, a federal grand jury in the Eastern District of New York has been reviewing evidence in this case for 6 months. A federal grand jury. The words hit the committee room like a bomb. Grand juries only review evidence when federal prosecutors are preparing criminal charges. AOC was hyperventilating now, her carefully planned attack completely shattered. You've been investigating me in secret. This is police state tactics. This is exactly what authoritarian regimes do. Her voice cracked with genuine panic. I demand to know what evidence you think you have. I have constitutional rights. You can't just ambush a sitting congresswoman with secret investigations. But Patel wasn't finished. He reached for another folder. This one marked with both FBI and IRS criminal investigation seals. The evidence includes forensic analysis of your campaign committee's financial activities, he said with devastating calm. Specifically, your systematic conversion of campaign funds to personal use through a network of shell companies and fictitious consulting arrangements. Now, he said, opening the second folder with surgical precision, let's discuss the federal racketeering investigation. AOC stared at him in complete horror as she realized this was just the beginning. The revelation of a federal grand jury had transformed the hearing from political theater into something resembling a federal criminal proceeding. AOC's legal team in the gallery was frantically making phone calls, clearly recognizing that their client was in serious legal jeopardy. But AOC's political survival instincts kicked in with desperate intensity. Mr. Chairman, she shouted, her voice bordering on hysterical, I demand this committee go into executive session immediately. If there are ongoing federal investigations, they cannot be discussed in public. She turned to the cameras, making a direct appeal to her audience. America is witnessing a constitutional crisis. The FBI director is treating a sitting congresswoman like a criminal defendant without due process. Her legal team had clearly briefed her on criminal procedure. Director Patel, if you believe I'm under federal investigation, I invoke my Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination. I demand Miranda warnings. You are conducting an interrogation without constitutional protections. The legal arguments were sophisticated and desperate. AOC was throwing every constitutional protection at the wall, hoping something would stick. She pulled out her phone again, this time calling House leadership directly. Speaker Johnson, I need immediate intervention. The FBI director is conducting an illegal interrogation of a sitting member of Congress. Committee Democrats finally found their voices. Ranking member Jerry Nadler interrupted. Mr. Chairman, this is highly irregular. If there are ongoing federal investigations of a sitting member, this committee should not be the forum for disclosure. AOC seized the moment. Exactly. This entire hearing is now illegitimate. Director Patel has destroyed any pretense of proper procedure. This is a constitutional crisis. She stood up dramatically, gathering her papers. I will not participate in this sham proceeding. This is not oversight. This is persecution. But as she moved toward the exit, Patel's voice cut through the chaos with lethal authority. Congresswoman, I wouldn't recommend leaving. What I'm about to discuss involves federal charges that could result in your immediate arrest. The words stopped her cold. Immediate arrest. AOC froze halfway to the door, her face draining of all color. Patel opened his second folder, this one bearing the distinctive markings of FBI organized crime investigations. The Financial Crimes section, working with our Organized Crime and Gang section, has developed evidence under the Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act, he announced with prosecutorial precision, RICO, the federal organized crime statute. AOC slowly returned to her seat, clearly recognizing the gravity of what she was facing. Operation Green Fraud, Patel continued, is a 2-year FBI investigation into systematic racketeering involving progressive political fundraising networks. Your activities fit the federal definition of an organized criminal enterprise. He began reading from the FBI RICO analysis. The enterprise consists of you, Riley Roberts, Brand New Congress, LLC, Justice Democrats, and multiple affiliated shell companies. The pattern of racketeering activity includes wire fraud, mail, fraud campaign finance violations, and tax evasion spanning 4 years. The specificity was terrifying. FBI investigators had mapped out an entire criminal organization with AOC at the center. RICO requires proof of an ongoing criminal enterprise and a pattern of racketeering activity, Patel explained with the authority of someone who'd prosecuted organized crime cases. Our investigation has documented over 40 separate federal crimes committed by this enterprise since 2021. AOC tried one last desperate interruption. This is taken completely out of context. These are accounting errors, not crimes. But Patel was prepared for that defense too. Congresswoman, we have cooperating witnesses, former staff members who participated in these activities and are now providing testimony to federal prosecutors. Cooperating witnesses. The words hit AOC like a physical blow. Her own former staff members were working with the FBI. More importantly, Patel continued with devastating calm, we have wiretap evidence. He produced audio equipment that had been set up at his position. Under Title III Federal Surveillance Authority, the FBI obtained court-authorized wiretaps of communications related to this criminal enterprise. The committee room fell dead silent as Patel prepared to play actual FBI surveillance audio of AOC discussing criminal activity. This is a recording from March 15, 2023, intercepted under federal court order, Patel announced as he pressed play. AOC's voice filled the committee room, unmistakably clear and criminally damning. Riley, we need to move the money through your consulting company to avoid FEC reporting requirements. The luxury apartment expenses can be classified as media consulting, and the Tesla payments can go through the environmental advocacy budget. Riley Roberts' voice responded, Alex, that's structuring. If they audit us. AOC's voice clearly frustrated. They won't audit us if we keep the paper trail clean, route everything through Brand New Congress first, then to your LLC, then to our personal accounts. Make sure each transaction is under the reporting threshold. Riley. What about the designer clothing expenses, AOC, media consulting, image consulting, whatever sounds legitimate? The important thing is that none of this traces directly back to campaign funds. The recording was absolutely devastating. AOC's own voice caught on FBI surveillance explicitly discussing how to structure financial transactions to evade federal reporting requirements and convert campaign funds to personal use. AOC was hyperventilating now, her face completely drained of color. You, you recorded private conversations. This is illegal surveillance. Actually, Congresswoman Patel replied with deadly calm, when American citizens are discussing federal crimes, court-authorized surveillance is exactly what federal law enforcement is designed to detect. He produced the federal court order authorizing the wiretaps. A federal judge found probable cause that you were engaged in ongoing criminal activity. These recordings were legally obtained under Title III. The legal authority was unquestionable. A federal judge had authorized surveillance of a sitting congresswoman based on evidence of federal crimes. But that's just the beginning, Patel said, reaching for his third folder, this one marked with FBI Counterintelligence Division seals. Now let's discuss your violations of the Foreign Agents Registration Act and your coordination with foreign intelligence operations. AOC stared at him in complete terror as she realized the criminal exposure was far worse than she'd imagined. The revelation of FBI wiretaps had completely shattered AOC's composure. The reality that federal agents had been recording her private conversations about criminal activity had triggered a full legal crisis. Her attorneys in the gallery were frantically conferring, clearly recognizing that their client was facing potential federal felony charges. But the mention of foreign intelligence operations sent AOC into complete panic mode. "I invoke my Fifth Amendment right to remain silent," she declared, her voice shaking. "I will not answer any questions without my attorney present. This interrogation ends now." Her lead attorney, a prominent white-collar criminal defense lawyer, rushed to the witness table. "Director Patel, my client, is invoking all constitutional protections. If you believe she's committed federal crimes, charge her through proper channels, not congressional theater." AOC was now treating this like a federal criminal proceeding, which was exactly what it had become. "Mr. Chairman," she appealed desperately to Jim Jordan, "this is a violation of separation of powers. The FBI cannot use congressional oversight to conduct criminal interrogations. I demand immediate intervention from the Department of Justice Civil Rights Division." She turned to the cameras one final time, attempting to control the narrative, even as her legal world collapsed. This is exactly what authoritarian regimes do. They use secret police to intimidate political opponents. The world is watching America destroy democracy in real time. Committee Democrats were now openly distancing themselves. Even Jerry Nadler was shifting uncomfortably, recognizing that AOC appeared to be facing legitimate federal criminal charges rather than political persecution. "I am calling for international human rights observers," AOC continued desperately. "The United Nations needs to investigate what's happening in this room. This violates international law and basic human rights." The appeals to international intervention showed how desperate she'd become, but she was facing the FBI director, not a political opponent who could be intimidated by accusations of authoritarianism. Patel remained completely calm throughout her legal crisis, occasionally consulting with FBI legal counsel. When her attorney finished his objections, Patel looked up with the patience of someone who'd dealt with countless criminal defendants. "Congresswoman, you have the right to remain silent, but this is a congressional hearing, not a criminal interrogation. The evidence I'm presenting is already part of an ongoing federal investigation that will proceed through proper channels regardless of your testimony here." He opened his third folder marked with FBI Counterintelligence Division seals. "The Foreign Agents Registration Act requires registration when American citizens act as agents of foreign principals and political activities. Our Counterintelligence Division has evidence that you've been receiving foreign funding and coordination without proper registration." The counterintelligence implications were staggering. FARA violations involving sitting Congress members were national security matters of the highest priority. Patel began reading from the FBI Counterintelligence Assessment. "Treasury Department Financial Crimes Enforcement Network has traced $847,000 in payments from Chinese Communist Party-linked environmental organizations to Justice Democrats and affiliated groups that funded your campaigns and activities." He produced FinCEN analysis reports with official Treasury Department seals. The Green Climate Fund, Environmental Justice Alliance, and Climate Action Network all received direct funding from Beijing-controlled organizations, which was then redistributed to your political network. The money trail was comprehensive and damning. Chinese Communist Party money had flowed through environmental organizations directly to AOC's political operation. More concerning, Patel continued, our counterintelligence investigation has identified systematic coordination between your policy positions and Chinese government objectives. He displayed side-by-side policy documents. Your Green New Deal language mirrors Chinese Communist Party environmental policy documents almost word for word. Our analysis shows sections that appear to be direct translations from CCP policy papers. The policy coordination evidence was devastating. It suggested AOC hadn't just taken Chinese money, she'd allowed Chinese Communist Party officials to write American environmental policy, but the most damaging evidence was yet to come. Under court-authorized counterintelligence surveillance, the FBI has recorded meetings between you and individuals we've identified as Chinese intelligence operatives, Patel announced with devastating calm. AOC's attorney immediately objected. Any such recordings would be privileged congressional communications, not when they involve potential foreign agents operating without registration, Patel replied with legal precision. FISA courts have specific authority over foreign intelligence surveillance of American citizens who may be acting as agents of foreign powers. He prepared to play audio from counterintelligence surveillance that would destroy AOC's career and potentially lead to espionage charges. This is a recording from October 12, 2023, obtained under Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act authority, Patel announced as he activated the audio equipment. The audio quality was professional counterintelligence-grade surveillance. AOC's voice was unmistakably clear-speaking, with someone identified by FBI translators as a Chinese intelligence operative, AOC. The environmental regulations are moving through committee as discussed. The language you provided has been incorporated into the final draft. Chinese accented voice. Excellent. Beijing is very pleased with your legislative cooperation. The economic impact on American energy independence will be substantial. AOC, the payments need to be routed more carefully. Some journalists are asking questions about foreign funding. Chinese voice. The environmental organizations provide perfect cover. American environmental groups receive funding from many international sources. No one questions environmental protection money. AOC, just make sure the amounts don't trigger federal reporting requirements. We can't afford more scrutiny right now. The recording was absolutely devastating. AOC's own voice recorded by FBI counterintelligence coordinating with Chinese intelligence to damage American energy independence while receiving foreign payments. AOC was unable to speak as her own words filled the committee room. Her attorney was frantically taking notes, clearly recognizing the national security implications. Congresswoman, Patel said with the authority of America's top law enforcement officer, you've been operating as an unregistered agent of the Chinese Communist Party, coordinating policy positions that damage American interests while receiving foreign funding in violation of federal law. He reached for his fourth folder, this one marked with multiple intelligence agency seals. But foreign agent violations are still not the most serious charges you're facing, he continued with terrifying calm. Now let's discuss your role in the January 6th intelligence manipulation operation and how you coordinated with activist groups to exploit that crisis for political gain. AOC stared at him in absolute horror as she realized the FBI had investigated her role in January 6th as well. The counterintelligence revelations had left AOC completely unable to mount any coherent defense. The evidence of coordination with Chinese intelligence operatives had transformed her from a political target into someone facing potential espionage charges. Her legal team was in full crisis mode, recognizing that their client was facing the most serious federal charges possible. Committee Democrats had openly abandoned her. Even Jerry Nadler was staring at the evidence folders with obvious concern, recognizing that this had moved far beyond political theater into genuine national security territory. AOC sat silently, her attorney having instructed her to invoke Fifth Amendment protection on all questions. But her eyes showed the terror of someone who realized the FBI had been investigating every aspect of her political career. Congresswoman Patel continued with the methodical precision of a federal prosecutor presenting a comprehensive case. The FBI's January 6th investigation involved extensive analysis of communications, digital forensics, and coordination between political figures and activist groups. He opened his fourth folder, revealing hundreds of pages of FBI investigative reports, digital forensics analysis, and witness testimony. Our digital forensics section conducted a comprehensive analysis of social media coordination, communications intercepts, and video evidence related to January 6th. What we discovered shows systematic manipulation of that crisis for political purposes. The January 6th investigation had been one of the FBI's largest domestic investigations, involving thousands of hours of video analysis, digital forensics, and communications intercepts. Patel began reading from the official FBI investigative summary. Digital forensics show that your social media accounts and staff communications were coordinating with documentary film crews and activist organizations throughout January 6th to maximize dramatic footage and political impact. He produced timestamps and digital analysis reports. Your Twitter account posted 13 times during the crisis, each post carefully timed to coordinate with specific visual footage being captured by allied filmmakers and activists positioned throughout the Capitol complex. The coordination evidence was highly technical and undeniable. FBI digital forensics had reconstructed the entire social media operation in real time. More concerning, Patel continued, our analysis shows your team rejected multiple offers of security assistance from Capitol Police in order to maintain access for documentary crews and ensure maximum dramatic footage. He displayed Capitol Police communications logs and testimony. Capitol Police Sergeant David Martinez testified that your staff specifically requested minimal security presence in your immediate area because cameras needed clear sightlines for filming. The testimony showed AOC's team had prioritized political theater over security during a genuine crisis. But the most damaging evidence came from FBI surveillance of pre-January 6th coordination. Under court-authorized surveillance of activist organizations involved in January 6th planning, the FBI recorded coordination meetings between your staff and documentary filmmakers, Patel announced. He prepared to play FBI surveillance audio that would prove premeditated exploitation of the crisis. This recording is from January 4th, 2021, 2 days before January 6th, captured under federal court order during surveillance of activist planning meetings, Patel explained as he activated the audio. The audio quality was FBI counterintelligence-grade surveillance. AOC's chief of staff could be heard coordinating with documentary filmmakers. Chief of Staff Alexandria needs footage that shows her as vulnerable but brave. The more dramatic this looks, the more political capital we can generate from the crisis. Documentary filmmaker: we'll have cameras positioned to capture her evacuation route. Should we coordinate with security for staging? Chief of Staff Moore: security needs to be minimal around her office areas. We need clean shots of her looking scared and then defiant. This footage could define her political brand for years. Filmmaker: what if the situation gets actually dangerous? Chief of Staff: it won't. These people are all talk. But if something dramatic happens, make sure you're rolling. This could destroy the MAGA movement forever if we handle it right. The recording was absolutely devastating. AOC's own staff recorded by FBI surveillance discussing how to exploit January 6th for political gain while it was still being planned. AOC's attorney was frantically writing notes, recognizing that the pre-planning evidence showed criminal intent rather than reactive response to crisis. But Patel had additional evidence that made the coordination even more damning. FBI video analysis identified 37 instances where your behavior during January 6th appears to have been staged for cameras rather than reflecting genuine security concerns. He continued with devastating precision. He displayed FBI video forensics analysis showing specific timestamps and locations. Frame-by-frame analysis shows you looking directly at camera positions, pausing for optimal footage, and repeating dramatic gestures when cameras weren't rolling the first time. The video analysis was highly technical and undeniable. FBI forensics experts had analyzed every frame of footage to identify staged behavior. Most concerning, Patel said, his voice taking on the edge of someone investigating genuine threats to democracy. Our investigation shows you coordinated with the same activist networks that helped organize the January 6th events using the crisis they helped create to advance your political agenda. The implication was staggering. AOC had potentially coordinated with organizers of January 6th to exploit the crisis they were planning. He reached for his final folder, this one bearing IRS criminal investigation seals alongside FBI markings. But January 6th exploitation is still not the most serious financial crime you're facing, he said with terrifying calm. Now let's discuss the systematic tax evasion and money laundering operation you've been running through your family's business network. AOC stared at him in complete despair as she realized the FBI had investigated every aspect of her financial life as well. The January 6th evidence had completed AOC's transformation from confident political performer to silent criminal defendant. The proof that she'd coordinated with filmmakers to exploit a national crisis for political gain had destroyed any remaining credibility she might have claimed. Her legal team had instructed complete silence, recognizing that anything she said could be used in the multiple federal prosecutions that appeared inevitable. Committee Democrats were now openly discussing whether they should distance themselves from her publicly. The evidence presented wasn't political opposition research. It was the systematic presentation of a comprehensive federal criminal case involving national security, financial crimes, and exploitation of national crises. Patel opened his final folder with the same methodical precision he'd shown throughout the hearing. This folder bore both FBI and IRS criminal investigation seals indicating the most serious federal financial crimes. The FBI Financial Crimes Section, working in coordination with IRS Criminal Investigation, has conducted a comprehensive forensic analysis of your family's business network and personal financial activities. Patel announced with the authority of someone presenting evidence to a federal grand jury. He began reading from the joint FBI-IRS investigation summary. Forensic accounting shows systematic tax evasion totaling $427,000 in unreported income over 4 years accomplished through a complex money laundering scheme involving campaign funds, family business entities, and fictitious consulting arrangements. The specific dollar amount and technical precision showed this was the result of intensive federal investigation using the full resources of both agencies. Your family's construction company, Ocasio Construction, LLC, served as the primary money laundering vehicle. Patel continued displaying forensic accounting charts and bank records. Campaign funds were transferred to your boyfriend's consulting company, then to your family business for fictitious construction services, then to personal accounts. The money laundering scheme was sophisticated and systematic, involving multiple entities to obscure the illegal conversion of campaign funds to personal use. IRS forensic analysis shows that Ocasio Construction LLC reported $340,000 in construction income that corresponds exactly to payments from political entities, but performed no documented construction work, Patel explained with devastating precision. He displayed side-by-side bank records and construction permits. The company has no construction permits, no materials purchases, no employee records, and no work sites. It exists solely to launder political money into personal income. The evidence was comprehensive and undeniable. AOC's family had created a fake construction company specifically for money laundering purposes. Furthermore, Patel continued, your brother Gabriel Ocasio-Cortez was placed on the payroll of multiple political organizations despite performing no documented work. IRS analysis shows he received $180,000 in payments for fictitious consulting services. The family corruption was systematic, involving multiple family members in the money laundering scheme. But the most serious evidence involved bank fraud and wire fraud charges. When your family applied for small business administration loans during COVID-19, they submitted fraudulent applications claiming legitimate construction business activity, Patel announced. Federal prosecutors consider this bank fraud and wire fraud both felonies carrying significant prison sentences. He displayed the fraudulent loan applications alongside bank records showing no legitimate business activity. Your family received $125,000 in federal COVID relief funds based on fraudulent claims of construction business losses. The COVID fraud was particularly serious because it involved federal disaster relief funds intended for legitimate businesses struggling during the pandemic. The FBI forensic accounting team has reconstructed the complete financial scheme, Patel said, displaying a comprehensive organizational chart showing money flows between dozens of accounts and entities. Campaign funds converted to personal use $387,000, unreported income for tax evasion $427,000, fraudulent federal loan proceeds $125,000, wire fraud violations 43 separate interstate transfers, bank fraud 8 separate false applications. The systematic nature of the financial crimes was staggering. This wasn't occasional lapses in judgment. This was an organized criminal enterprise designed to systematically convert political money to personal wealth while evading federal taxes. AOC sat completely motionless, staring at the evidence of her family's comprehensive financial criminality. Her attorney was taking detailed notes, clearly preparing for federal criminal defense rather than political damage control. Congresswoman, Patel said, his voice carrying the final authority of America's top law enforcement officer, you and your family have been operating a systematic criminal enterprise designed to convert political funds to personal wealth, evade federal taxes, and defraud federal relief programs. He began closing the folders methodically, like a prosecutor concluding a comprehensive presentation. The evidence shows violations of federal campaign finance law, tax evasion, money laundering, bank fraud, wire fraud, ICO conspiracy, and Foreign Agents Registration Act. You've compromised American national security by coordinating with Chinese intelligence while exploiting national crises for personal political gain. The summary of charges was devastating and comprehensive. AOC was facing potential decades in federal prison on multiple felony counts. As FBI director, Patel concluded with devastating finality. I am immediately referring this matter to federal prosecutors for criminal charges. Asset forfeiture proceedings will begin immediately to recover the proceeds of these crimes. The room fell silent as the implications settled over everyone present. This wasn't political theater anymore. This was the systematic destruction of a political career through comprehensive federal criminal charges. AOC remained completely silent, her political career effectively over before federal prosecutors even filed formal charges. The systematic presentation of comprehensive federal criminal evidence had transformed the House Judiciary Committee hearing room into something resembling a federal prosecutor's closing argument. AOC sat in complete silence, her legal team frantically taking notes about charges that could result in decades of federal prison time. The evidence was so overwhelming and technical that even her most ardent political supporters couldn't dismiss it as partisan persecution. Committee Democrats had completely abandoned any pretense of defending her. Jerry Nadler, normally AOC's most reliable ally, was staring at the evidence folders with obvious concern about the implications for the entire progressive movement. The financial crimes, foreign agent violations, and national security compromises were too serious for political protection. Patel began his systematic conclusion with the methodical precision of someone who'd built comprehensive federal cases against organized crime figures. The FBI investigation into Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez represents one of the most extensive political corruption cases in modern American history, he announced with the authority of the nation's top law enforcement officer. He gestured toward the evidence folders spread across his table like exhibits in a federal prosecution. The evidence shows a systematic criminal enterprise spanning 4 years involving multiple federal felonies, national security compromises, and the exploitation of American political institutions for personal enrichment and foreign coordination. Patel began reading from his comprehensive case summary. Federal charges being referred to prosecutors include RICO conspiracy campaign finance violations, tax evasion, money laundering, bank fraud, wire fraud, Foreign Agents Registration Act violations, and conspiracy to defraud the United States. Each charge carried significant federal prison time. The combination could result in a life sentence. The financial evidence shows conversion of $387,000 in campaign funds to personal use evasion of $427,000, in federal taxes and fraudulent receipt of $125,000 in federal disaster relief funds. Patel continued with prosecutorial precision. The national security evidence shows coordination with Chinese intelligence operations, systematic compromise of American environmental policy, and potential espionage violations involving a sitting member of Congress. The national security implications elevated this from financial corruption to potential treason. The January 6th evidence shows systematic exploitation of a national crisis for political gain coordination with activist networks and manipulation of documentary coverage to advance personal political interests. The exploitation of national trauma for political purposes was particularly damaging to AOC's public image as a victim of that crisis. Patel reached for his final document bearing the official seal of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. As director of the FBI, I am immediately implementing the following federal law enforcement actions, he announced with the finality of someone exercising ultimate federal prosecutorial authority. First, criminal referrals are being filed with the Department of Justice for immediate prosecution on all federal charges. Federal prosecutors in the Eastern District of New York have been briefed on this evidence and are prepared to file formal charges. Second, asset forfeiture proceedings are being initiated to recover all proceeds of criminal activity. Federal marshals will be seizing bank accounts, real estate, and other assets obtained through criminal means. Third, all security clearances and classified access are being immediately revoked due to national security compromises and potential foreign intelligence coordination. Fourth, congressional ethics referrals are being filed with the House Ethics Committee for violations of congressional rules and oath of office. Fifth, the FBI is expanding this investigation to examine other members of Congress and political figures who may have participated in similar criminal activities. The systematic implementation of federal law enforcement consequences was devastating and immediate. AOC's financial assets would be frozen, her security access revoked, and her political career effectively ended within hours. But Patel's most powerful moment came when he addressed the broader implications for American democracy. For too long, members of Congress have believed they operate above the law that governs ordinary Americans. He said, his voice carrying the moral authority of someone who'd sworn to uphold federal law without political consideration. The FBI's investigation into Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez proves that political office provides no immunity from federal criminal prosecution. Whether you're a bartender who became a congresswoman or a former president, the law applies equally to everyone. He looked directly at AOC, who remained motionless and silent. Congresswoman, you came to Congress claiming to represent working families against corruption and corporate influence. Instead, you've become one of the most systematically corrupt politicians in modern American history, enriching yourself and your family while coordinating with foreign adversaries and exploiting national tragedies. His voice rose with the moral indignation of someone who dedicated his career to fighting corruption. You've betrayed your oath of office, betrayed your constituents, and betrayed the American people who trusted you to serve their interests rather than Chinese Communist Party objectives and personal enrichment schemes. The personal condemnation was devastating and unanswerable. AOC had built her political brand on fighting corruption while systematically engaging in the most serious corruption imaginable. Patel concluded with the quiet authority of someone who just delivered justice. This investigation represents the FBI's commitment to equal justice under law. We will investigate corruption wherever we find it, regardless of political party, social media following, or progressive credentials. The American people deserve representatives who serve them, not foreign governments and personal bank accounts. As he began gathering the evidence folders, AOC finally spoke for the first time in over an hour. This is all lies," she whispered, barely audible. "My family, but we're just trying to survive." But her voice carried no conviction, no fight, no political fire. It was the broken whisper of someone who'd been systematically exposed as everything she'd claimed to oppose. The committee room remained silent as AOC sat motionless. Her political career and personal freedom both effectively ended by the most comprehensive federal criminal case presentation in congressional history. The immediate aftermath of FBI Director Kash Patel's systematic destruction of AOC created a political earthquake that fundamentally transformed American politics. Within minutes of the hearing ending, footage had become the most viewed congressional hearing in history, with social media platforms struggling to handle unprecedented traffic as millions shared clips of the comprehensive federal criminal case presentation. The evidence was so overwhelming and technical that even AOC's most ardent supporters couldn't dismiss it as political persecution. Financial records, FBI surveillance, audio counterintelligence assessments, and forensic accounting reports created an undeniable pattern of systematic corruption involving multiple federal felonies and national security compromises. Democratic leadership went into complete crisis mode. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries called an emergency meeting within hours of the hearing, recognizing that AOC's systematic corruption threatened the entire progressive movement's credibility. Senior Democrats who'd championed her as the future of their party were now scrambling to distance themselves from what appeared to be the most comprehensive political corruption case in modern history. Speaker Kevin McCarthy announced immediate congressional action. The House will hold emergency votes on resolutions calling for Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez's immediate resignation and referral to the House Ethics Committee for expulsion proceedings. The evidence presented by FBI Director Patel shows systematic betrayal of congressional oath and coordination with foreign adversaries. The congressional response was swift and bipartisan. Even progressive Democrats recognized that the national security implications of coordination with Chinese intelligence made AOC's position untenable. But the legal consequences moved even faster than the political ones. Within 48 hours, federal prosecutors in the Eastern District of New York filed a comprehensive federal indictment against Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Riley Roberts, and multiple family members. The charges included RICO conspiracy campaign finance violations, tax evasion, money laundering, bank fraud, wire fraud, Foreign Agents Registration Act violations, and conspiracy to defraud the United States. Federal marshals executed search warrants on AOC's congressional office, her luxury Washington apartment, and her family's properties in New York. Bank accounts were frozen, assets were seized, and the systematic financial empire built through political corruption began crumbling under federal asset forfeiture proceedings. The FBI expanded the investigation based on evidence found in AOC's case. Director Patel announced that similar financial patterns had been identified in the activities of 12 other progressive congressional members, leading to the largest congressional corruption investigation since the Abscam operation of the 1980s. Operation Clean House, as the FBI designated the expanded investigation, began examining the entire progressive fundraising network for similar patterns of foreign coordination, financial crimes, and exploitation of political office for personal enrichment. Justice Democrats. The organization that had launched AOC's political career came under comprehensive federal investigation as evidence emerged of systematic foreign funding and money laundering operations spanning dozens of political campaigns. The international implications were equally serious. Chinese government officials who'd been recorded coordinating with AOC were declared persona non grata and expelled from the United States. The State Department launched a comprehensive review of Chinese influence operations targeting American political figures. Foreign intelligence services that had been sharing information with American counterparts began providing additional evidence of Chinese coordination with American political figures, leading to the exposure of what intelligence officials described as the most extensive foreign influence operation in American history. For Kash Patel personally, the systematic exposure of AOC's corruption had established him as the most respected law enforcement figure in America. His methodical presentation of overwhelming evidence while maintaining prosecutorial professionalism had demonstrated that authentic accountability was possible even at the highest levels of American politics. Director Patel has restored credibility to federal law enforcement, declared Senator Chuck Grassley, the senior Republican on the Judiciary Committee. His systematic presentation of evidence without political grandstanding shows what real justice looks like. Even Democratic senators who'd initially opposed Patel's nomination began acknowledging his professional competence. While I disagreed with his appointment, Director Patel's handling of this investigation shows commitment to evidence-based law enforcement rather than political persecution, admitted Senator Dick Durbin. The most significant long-term impact was cultural. The contrast between Patel's evidence-based prosecution and AOC's performative politics had been so stark that it created a new standard for American political accountability. Congressional approval ratings increased for the first time in decades as Americans saw that systematic corruption could be exposed and prosecuted regardless of political party or social media following. Law enforcement recruitment surged as young Americans were inspired by Patel's demonstration that federal agencies could operate with integrity and focus on evidence rather than politics. Most importantly, the systematic exposure of foreign influence operations led to comprehensive reforms in campaign finance law, foreign agent registration requirements, and congressional ethics enforcement. 6 months after the hearing that changed American politics, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez was convicted on all federal charges and sentenced to 15 years in federal prison. Her family's assets built through systematic corruption and foreign coordination were seized and used to compensate taxpayers defrauded through various schemes. The woman who'd built a political career attacking corruption and claiming to represent working families against powerful interests spent her remaining years in federal prison, a forgotten criminal whose name became synonymous with the ultimate betrayal of progressive values. But the most lasting legacy belonged to FBI Director Kash Patel, who'd proven that when authentic law enforcement professionals face corrupt politicians, truth and evidence always prevail. His closing statement to Congress captured what had been accomplished. The FBI's investigation of Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez represents our commitment to equal justice under law. We have proven that political office, social media following, and progressive credentials provide no protection from federal prosecution when evidence shows systematic criminal activity. No one is above the law in America. Whether you're a bartender who became a congresswoman or any other political figure, federal law applies equally to everyone. The American people deserve representatives who serve their interests, not foreign governments and personal bank accounts. Today's accountability represents the FBI's promise that we will investigate corruption wherever we find it. This is what equal justice under law means. This is what authentic accountability looks like. And this is what happens when evidence-based law enforcement confronts political corruption. The systematic destruction of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez had established a new standard in America when authentic law enforcement professionals have access to comprehensive evidence. Political theater cannot survive prosecutorial precision. Justice had been served, the law had been upheld, and America had been reminded that truth evidence and authentic accountability still matter more than social media followers and progressive credentials. The swamp was deeper than anyone imagined, but it wasn't impossible to drain when the right person had access to the evidence and the courage to present it without political consideration. FBI Director Kash Patel had proven that authentic justice was still possible in American politics. Smash that like button if justice was served. Subscribe for more content. Exposing political corruption. Share this story everywhere before they try to memory hole what really happened. Comment below. Do you think more politicians should face this level of FBI scrutiny? Let us know what corruption you want investigated next. This is what happens when authentic law enforcement faces corrupt politicians. This is what happens when evidence trumps political theater. This is what happens when America remembers what real accountability looks like. God bless our law enforcement professionals who choose evidence over politics. And God bless everyone who still believes America is worth defending against foreign influence and domestic corruption.